the college football playoff rankings, it's out, man. So we're gonna get to the ones that the to the point where it matters. So I'm just gonna start them from 15 to all the way to number one. So coming in at number 15, Arizona State. 14, South Carolina. 13, Ole Miss. 12, Miami. 11, Alabama. 10, Boise State. 9, Indiana. 8, SMU. Number 7, Tennessee. Number 6, Ohio State. Rounding off the top 5 is Georgia. Number 4, Notre Dame. Penn State at number 3. Number 2, the Texas. And last but not least, number 1, the Oregon Ducks. What's your thoughts?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. You can go first.
Okay. So I won't even focus so much on those rankings. I focus more on how the bracket's going to look, and those are two different things, obviously. And obviously, we basically know 11 teams are in for sure. Okay, 11 teams are in. I'll name those teams. One, Georgia, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama. Well, hold on. I'm hold on if on
I know
Alabama.
what you're saying. I know where you're going. I
Yeah,
got you.
Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State. Those teams are in, and then you're gonna get the Big 12 winner, which right now, and then looking at the bracket, they have Arizona State. Well, the G5 winner right now, they have a Penn or Boise State. The ACC winner right now, SMU. And it doesn't even matter who wins the SEC and Big Ten title games. The winner and the loser of those games is in. So what does it come down to? It comes to the last at-large spot, and that is Miami, Alabama, South Carolina, or Ole Miss. So basically, you have 3 lost SEC schools and Miami, a 2-loss ACC team. I think last week Miami was ranked 6th. So I was wondering how much are they going to fall? And everybody was looking, are they going to be under Alabama or is Alabama going to be above them? Because obviously Alabama just had a bad loss 2 weeks ago to Oklahoma. Then they beat Auburn. So then it comes down to, okay, how are they going to rank the SEC teams? And I think personally they ranked it well. Okay. They have South Carolina last out of those 3 SEC schools, and they should be last. Look, I like South Carolina more than Ole Miss and Alabama. Just as a fan, if these teams are playing on a neutral site, whatever, I'm rooting for South Carolina out of those 3 teams. However, head-to-head has to matter. South Carolina lost to Ole Miss badly, and they lost to Alabama. They did lose in a close one, but they lost. Then you have to look at, all right, Alabama or Ole Miss. I'm cool if somebody said they prefer Ole Miss over Alabama because they had some common opponents. Ole Miss played those common opponents better. South Carolina is an example. They destroyed South Carolina. Alabama struggled with South Carolina. They destroyed Georgia. Georgia came down to the last minute with Alabama. So if somebody said, I want Ole Miss in there over Alabama, I'm actually cool with that. The committee says Alabama over Ole Miss. So then you also look at Miami. Clearly, they do not think that they have enough legit wins. In their mind, they said Alabama's beaten 3 ranked teams currently in the top 25, and Miami has not beaten anybody in the current top 25. And that is what tilted Alabama over. So now, going into next week, it comes down to one thing, the ACC title game. That's all that matters at this point. It's going to be if Clemson beats SMU, will they leave a 2-loss SMU team and punish them for playing in the ACC title game and losing, and giving a 3-loss SEC team in there, or with SMU winning, do things just stay as they are right now and Alabama just gets in? Because clearly Clemson's not getting in without a win. They have to win. So next week, I know the talk is going to be SMU with 2 losses if they lose Clemson, or Alabama with 3. Right now, if I had to guess, if SMU lost, I think they would put Bama in there because they're kind of doing that with Miami right now. You're punishing SMU for playing in an ACC title game, and that's a little dangerous because it might get to a point where they just eliminate conference title games if this continues. So I think everybody's on the same page as me. Probably we're talking about the last at-large spot. The way I see it, I would pick Alabama to be SMU, Miami, or Ole Miss had they played. So I'm okay with Alabama getting in. I am. And that's just my thoughts.
Okay, he did. He did. You did very well. You're learning, son. You're learning. I know Keo put out there that I said South Carolina didn't deserve to be in the playoff, and everything he just said, Ole Miss beat them head to head. Alabama beat them head to head. But what I am kind of confused about the rankings is they put Alabama over Miami, but they didn't put Ole Miss or South Carolina over Miami. That was a little tricky to me, only because to me, like you said, Ole Miss and Alabama have a pretty, now I'm not saying exactly the same resume, but similar resume. The only thing that hurts Ole Miss for me is the teams that they lost to wasn't really great. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Let me tell you something, man. Vanderbilt has 6 losses. I get that. But we're not going to sit up here and act like Vanderbilt's a bad football team. They lost 6 games this year, but they're not that bad. And they did lose to who I'm
Oklahoma.
leaving up. Who was it?
Bama lost to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. That's the one.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, yeah, that one wasn't the greatest loss on their resume for sure. But Oklahoma beat a team like Tulane. I know Tulane's now out of it since they lost to Memphis last week, but they beat a team like that. So I look at this and I say to myself, if you leave out Miami, can Miami basically be mad about it? No, you was up 21-0 versus Syracuse and you lost that game. You were up 21-0. So I'm okay if you leave. I'm not, obviously you got to pick one of them, but if Bama wouldn't have made it, they have nobody but to blame but themselves. Miami, South Carolina, Ole Miss, these teams can't complain if they don't make it. Because in my mind, Ole Miss, you should have beat Kentucky. No excuses. Miami, you can't blow a 21-point lead. And when you know you have everything to play for. South Carolina, I know everybody's saying they're hot right now. They're on a 6-game winning streak. I actually picked them to beat Clemson this past week. But you lost. You lost head to head. Head to head has to be, for me, my number one criteria. You gotta win head to head if I'm choosing between y'all two. And then Alabama, if they were to be left out, you can't lose to a team like Oklahoma. I actually agree with box office. Look, and everybody knows, I graduated from LSU, love LSU, told y'all before the show started, LSU, you cut me open, you get the purple and gold. But I do think Bama should be in as the last at-large team. They have a win versus Georgia, who's a top 5 team. You can't take that from them. When Alabama's playing on their A game, they can beat anybody in the country. And I'd rather see that than to see a team that no disrespect to Miami, shout out to the U, but they'll let a team like Indiana drop 50 on them. They might beat them 51-50, and it'll be exciting, but their defense has to play better if they want to win a national championship moving forward. But I'm okay with it. Miami, I think the committee got it right as far as Alabama's concerned. Miami, tough. It's tough on y'all. I'll say this right now. I know we're gonna talk about it. It's if SMU loses, I think Alabama still gets in. I just don't think SMU has the resume to outweigh Alabama. So Alabama, congratulations to the Tide. Y'all figured out a way to sneak yourselves right back in there. And I actually think they might make some noise. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they may make some noise in the playoffs.
2 things I want to add real quick before Keo goes. So, X, I think you make an excellent point. How do you put Alabama over Miami, but you put Miami over Ole Miss? To me, that just doesn't make sense because their reasoning, if you watch the show, was
Right.
Alabama has 3 ranked wins and Miami doesn't have any. Okay. Ole Miss has ranked wins. So that's very inconsistent. And maybe they didn't think that far ahead, but they should, because this might end up a 16-team playoff soon.
Right.
And you got to think about these scenarios. So that doesn't make sense to me, even though I do agree Alabama's better. And by the way, right now that looks like that matchup is going to stay locked. Alabama's going to have to go to South Bend. It looks like it's going to be Alabama at South Bend first round is what it looks like. A lot of the other matchups are going to change because of these conference title games, but it seems like that one's locked.
I got a
Alabama's
question for
definitely going
y'all.
on the road though.
I got a question for y'all, but I'm gonna let Keo go first. Go ahead, Keo.
The way they had this is it's they based it off these rankings. They based it a lot on the head to head records. If you look at the way they seeded these teams or ranked these teams, it's based on a lot of head to head records. Like obviously, people have complaints about South Carolina being you know uh, below certain teams. South Carolina got blown out by Ole Miss in their own house. That was bad. And then Miami and the Miami and the Alabama comparisons. The strength of schedule doesn't help Miami at all. Their best win is against Louisville, Duke, and then they've had a lot of close games coming down to the wire. When you compare, we were talking about Indiana last year. The huge difference with Indiana is that they may not have played anybody, but they have blown out all those mediocre teams that they played against. That's what Miami didn't do. I think if Miami would have done that, if they just blown out those mediocre teams that they're supposed to beat, I think the committee would have looked at differently. But when you have these close games, and then some of the losses that you had was kind of bad. It kind of hurts you. Um, at the end with SMU, I think it definitely hurts them also because the amount of quality wins that SMU have is the same wins um that Miami has. So that doesn't help them at all. And have mentioned with Miami that they needed to win out or win their conference to get in. And right now it looks like they're going to be the last team out when it comes to these playoffs. And Alabama, I have no problem with that because their strength of schedule is definitely better than Miami. I think they're ranked 10th when it comes to their strength of schedule. They beat their argument this entire time where I've been saying it, and where the committee looked is they beat Georgia. That's what it comes down to. They beat
Thank you,
Georgia.
Ron Williams, for that touchdown. Him and
Yeah, they beat Georgia. They beat Georgia
Leroy.
at the end. Yeah, they beat Georgia at the end of the day. That's what helped them. If they wouldn't have beaten Georgia, I think we probably would have had a different conversation with this. But Alabama gets in, and if you're asking me on the neutral site, who would win between a game between Miami and Alabama, or Miami or SMU, I think these the committee saying, "Hey, we're taking Alabama," um, and they don't want to make that mistake like they did last year because last year Georgia ran through everybody until they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and they got left out where people felt like they deserved to get in. Now, I don't think the committee is going to make that mistake again and leave an SEC team out.
Okay, I got a question for y'all. I know that you said that game is pretty much a lock, right? The Alabama Notre Dame. But let's just say Texas beats Georgia this week in the SEC championship game. Do you think they should put Georgia behind Alabama, being that Alabama beat Georgia head to head? Even though they didn't go to the SEC championship game, they did beat them head to head. Georgia should still be in, I think. But do you think that they should move everybody up one and drop Georgia to where Alabama is right now?
I personally think they should put Alabama over Georgia because not only did they beat them, if Texas wins, of course, not only did they beat them, they would have 2 losses. Georgia would have 3. Or no, they would both
They
have
both
3.
have three. Both
So,
have three.
sorry, but still, I go with the head to head. I would
Gotcha.
go with the head to head. And who cares if you're punishing Georgia for playing in the SEC title game when they're already going to make it anyways. So
Right.
then switch up the rankings. Also, like I want to point out one thing with the rankings right now. Let's say all the favorites this weekend win. The Vegas favorites. So Vegas has Texas, Oregon, Boise, SMU, Arizona State all winning this weekend, right? That would mean Texas would play the winner of Georgia and Indiana. If I'm the committee, I don't want to see Georgia Texas for the third time, at least in the second round.
Right.
Like I would shift it around so I could see other matchups we haven't seen, in my opinion. So it'd be interesting if all the favorites did win. Where do you move Georgia? Because they would land in the 7 to 10 range where they would play Texas next round. And I also want to, if y'all pull up the bracket on your own, if all the favorites win, bruh, it's better being a 5 seed than a 1 or 2 seed. Because the 5 right now is Penn State. They would play Arizona State and have to play Boise the next round.
Right.
Meanwhile, Oregon, if they win, they stay to 1. They'd play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. And I just said Texas, the 2 seed, would play Indiana or Georgia. So it's whoever gets the 5th seed is actually in really, really good position going forward. I would actually want the 5 more than anything.
Wow. Okay. What you think, Kill? If Georgia was to lose this week to Texas, do you think Bama would be in front of them?
No, I think Georgia would still be ahead of them. I still think Georgia is a better team. Um, you look at the losses that Georgia has taken um, to against quality teams. I just don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna penalize Georgia losing in a rematch in the SEC championship game, and especially they went to the SEC championship game, and I don't think they're gonna penalize Georgia for that because right now there's been talk about eliminating the conference title game and it's meaningless. I think the committee is going to make a statement where, hey, you should be rewarded for making to the conference title game. I think they will try to make a statement like that if that does happen.
I've said it before in this show. I think they should just pick the best 12 teams. I don't care if you won your conference. And I know that's kind of like, well, how do you choose that? At the end of the day, you choose the best 12 teams and you rank them. Whoever's number 1 seed, they get the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 2 seed, the 3 seed, the 3 seed, the 4 seed, the 4 seed, 5, and so on and so forth.
But the issue with that is I think then teams would try to do what Notre Dame does. They don't want to join a conference. And then
Well,
they
Notre
make their
Dame's
own
never been a part of
schedule.
a conference, so that's not nothing new.
Right, but I'm saying more teams I think would try to go that route because then the SEC and Big Ten teams are going to go, well, we're the 2 toughest conferences. We're beating up on each other. We have 3 lost Alabamas in our conference. Meanwhile, SMU has 2. So how do you determine then
Well,
who's
I'll tell
really
you
the
this.
best
I
12?
think that a way you fix that is strength of schedule. Hand to hand would be my number 1 criteria. Then strength of schedule. If you have a weak strength of schedule, we don't care. We remember we always clown about Colt Brennan and Hawaii, but they went undefeated. I don't care if you go undefeated if you ain't play nobody. If you're not playing nobody, then you're not gonna get in. At the end of the day, you still have to play. You have to have a tough strength of schedule. I honestly will say this, and I'm gonna say this. I know this might not be popular to everybody that's joined. I do not think the best 12 teams are making the playoffs. I think we're going by somebody's resume. But I do think that there's teams that's being left out that's not one of the best 12 teams in the country.
Well, for sure, because you're gonna have the Boise's, the SMU's in there, but they're in the less tougher division or conferences, and that's what's helping them.
Let me ask you this. I know we had this conversation, and this is no shot. Shout out to Kurt Signetti. Can y'all honestly say, not off a resume, just what you saw with your own 2 eyes, you think Indiana is one of the best 12 teams in the country?
I
No,
do. Yes,
I
they
don't.
are.
I
To
don't.
me,
I
they
don't.
are.
no.
You think they would beat Ole Miss in a neutral site game?
I don't know because I do think Ole Miss is a top 12 team.
Okay. What about
But
Miami? Do you think they beat Miami?
I think Indiana would beat Miami.
Wow.
I think Indiana would beat South Carolina.
No, they wouldn't beat South Carolina.
I disagree. I think they'd beat South Carolina. I think they'd beat Miami. I think they'd beat SMU. I think this year Indiana's better than Clemson.
Oh wow! I know you
My-
like Clemson,
This
so
year.
let's just say that.
This year.
Indiana
Okay.
don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They're not a top 12 team. If I'm a college football team right now, I would want to play Indiana because Indiana is easy money to me. Indiana is
Wow,
beatable.
this needs to be a video right
The
here.
10 team,
I think Indiana is better than Notre Dame.
Wow.
I think every team right. I think every team right now in the playoffs right now. I think the top 10 teams right now would beat Indiana. I think every team that's why after Indiana's lost,
SMU,
yeah, SMU also. They dropped very drastically low. They dropped all the way 9 to borderline to number
Boise
10.
would beat Indiana.
I think Boise State would beat Indiana
And
also.
you don't even like Boise State. For him to
Yeah.
say that, that's crazy.
Like
But
the,
you know
that
how that is.
X, I would really want you to sit down and name me 12 teams that are better in Indiana. I really don't think there's 12.
Well, the reason why because I disagree with you. I do think South Carolina's better. I'm not just gassing. I really think South
I know
Carolina's
you
better
like
than
South
them.
Carolina, but
So
I don't know about
definitely
12.
I think all 5 SEC, well, 6 SEC schools, 3 are getting left out, 4 in, I think, right? It's 7 of them, right? I think Tennessee's better. I think Alabama's better. I think Georgia's better. I think Texas is better. I think South Carolina's better. I think Ole Miss is better. Who I'm leaving off? Am I leaving anybody out?
I think that's it.
Okay. I think obviously Oregon's better. I think Ohio State's better. I think Penn State's better. I think Notre Dame is better. I know you don't agree with that. I do think Notre Dame is better. I think
Neutral
they
site.
fall. And I
Neutral
would
site.
probably if I was a betting man, y'all know I'm not the biggest better, but I would probably say Miami's better than them. If they had to play, I'd pick Miami. Now,
Wow. I would pick Indiana.
now everybody else after that, I think that they're in that realm. But that's no shot to them. They have a great record. I'm not gonna say resume. They have a great record.
And they're
So
one of
they're
those
in.
teams that's definitely in. So we will see them.
Yeah, for sure.
And
They're
it looks
in.
like-
There's no doubt
it
about
looks
it.
like they're gonna. They might end up hosting a playoff game too, depending on how it ends up.
Yeah, they probably get in, but Indiana's an automatic first round exit.
And I'm gonna tell y'all, I know this might be unpopular. Don't sleep on Arizona State. I don't know if y'all been watching them lately. Arizona
Really?
State I can make a case that they could beat Indiana too. And they could beat some of these other teams the way they've been playing. But now we're gonna see how tested they are once they get into these playoffs. Because I mean, we'll pick in the games in a few minutes. But Iowa State's a good team too. Because I thought they would lose to Kansas State this past week.